We'd like to thank the following sponsors for helping provide this video.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Is everybody awake?
Sort of.
No. Sort of? We're going to help you out with that.
Everybody here's awake.
I'm Cheezy, and I work for a company called Mean Dog, and I've been really blessed. These are pictures of me having fun. And yeah, over the last 4 or 5 years or so, I've had an opportunity to work with some companies that were very, very forward-thinking and see how far I can push the envelope in certain areas, and tried a lot of crazy things. And some of them actually were successful. It's amazing. So hard to believe. And I'm going to share some of that with you guys today, but we're going to do it in a really, really fun way. And I want to ask you guys, first of all, I need some volunteers. And so who likes to have fun? And I'm not talking about like I like to play checkers on a Friday evening fun. I'm talking you really like to have fun. I mean, come on, raise your hand. Who? Yeah, you? Come on up, come on up, come on up. What's your name? What is it? IBK. What do you do?
I'm a software developer.
A software developer. Excellent. Today you're not, though. Today you're going to be my tester. Okay? So come on over here. And I have just a costume for you. First of all, you know, testers are like the traffic cop. You know, they like to drag, you know, and then, so here, I got a wonderful hat for you. And because I definitely wouldn't want you to not be accessorized, I brought a beautiful blue boa for you. And you know, testers have this reputation for whining and complaining a lot. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here, I brought you a big pacifier just so you know. And you have a seat right here, okay? How's that sound? And who else wants to go? Lisa's raising her hand. Come on up here. Everyone knows Lisa, right? Lisa! What do you do, Lisa?
I'm a tester.
You're a tester. Not today, though. Today, you're going to be a developer.
Okay.
How's that sound? So come on over here. Let's see what we got for you. I've got this lovely necklace with a football on it and a whistle. You better see if the whistle works. Let me test it out. Blow it real loud. It works. Wonderful. Oh, and I have a nice hot dog hat for you. Because developers are kind of like hot dogs, you know? So, yeah. And of course, we want to accessorize you as well. Here you go. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Kind of hard to get that around the hot dog hat.
It is. It is. Okay, who else wants it? Dave, come on up. I know you. Who are you?
I'm Dave Rooney.
You're Dave Rooney. What do you do, Dave?
I'm a coach.
You're a coach. Well, today you're not a coach. Today you're going to be my UX person. Okay? Okay. So come here. Let's see what we got for you. Well, first of all, I got this lovely hat. Okay? Yeah, look at that. You're going to have to lose your glasses, too, because I went out and got you matching glasses with your hat. Huh? And because you're UX, it's all about drawing, right? It's all about drawing pictures. So look what I got you. And one more volunteer. Artie, come on up. Who are you?
Ardita.
What do you do?
I'm a coach too.
You're a no, you're not. You're not a coach. You're a product owner today.
Woohoo!
So let's see. We've got a necklace with a great big dollar sign because product owners always worry about spending and and getting things done on budget. There, we'll start with that. And product owners always ask for everything all the time, all the toppings, right? So I got you a wonderful pizza hat. See, look at this, huh? Is this good? And product owners like their voice to be heard. They like to tell people and order people around a lot, right? So I got you a nice big microphone. Here you go. I've got a few other things too. Let me see what else I have here. I have, let's see, here, this is a defect. We'll give that to you. We'll give one to you. This is the ball. Here, you can have that. You see this? This is an email. Okay? This is an email. See? This is an email. So, see? So, I don't know if you noticed that there's a label on the chairs that you're sitting on. This is my story card wall. What does yours say?
Behind you.
Development.
Yeah? Development test?
Review.
Review?
Done.
Done. Okay. There's one back here that says meeting too.
Of course it does.
So if you have to go to a meeting, where are you going to go? And if you're up here and you need to send somebody that's in a meeting an email, what do? Oh, huh? It's pretty soft, unless you get hit in the side of the head. All right? Okay, so we're just about ready to start. I bet you wonder what you're doing. Before we get started, though, let me just say that I encourage everybody else to take plenty of pictures. In fact, if you want to come up here and take a picture and tweet it to the world so the world can see how much fun these guys are having. I really encourage it. Okay? And they'll be happy for it too, you know. They want their friends to know what they're up to. So here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to act out a skit. Okay? And I'm going to show you an animation of the skit, and we'll get to that in just a moment, okay? But what I really want you to do is, in this skit, I want you to be funny. I want you to start to act out all of the stereotypes that you could think for the role that you're playing. So what's one for a developer that you could think of, Lisa?
Oh, don't talk to me, Kester, because I'm really busy and you can take care of all the bugs later.
That's right, that's right. And just throw the code over the wall. Well, then I'm sure you guys can all think of stereotypes, right? So here's what's on the line. At the end of each skit, you guys get to vote who was the funniest. And whoever was the funniest will earn some beads. I'm telling you, these are serious beads, okay? Okay? So we're all set. You guys are ready? Who thinks this is going to be crazy? Dave, that's a natural for you, I'm telling you. That's perfect. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to show a little animation here so you get an idea, but this is not the one that you're going to act out. This is just like an example. The one after this you're going to act out. Alrighty. Yeah, so I'm an Agile coach as well, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I see these interesting patterns everywhere where I go. And when I first show up at a place, I usually ask them, so tell me, what are you doing now? How are you working? And this first animation is what they tell me every time. They say, well, you know, we start with a story kind of ready, and by the way, this is the ball, right? So who has the ball? Okay. So, and you know what? Whenever we're ready, we pass it off to the developer, and they write some code, you know, and everything's going along well, and when they're done, they kind of pass it over, and somebody tests it, you know, and whenever the tester's done, it goes over, the product owner comes up, reviews it, and whenever they're done, the story just moves to done. This is how we work. Right. Right. Okay, so after being there a week or two, I find out how things are really working. And by the way, you may want to pay attention to this because this is the first one you guys get to act out. Okay? So pay attention to the animation. So this is how things are really happening in those places. So we start off at the same point, but of course the product owner has to go to meetings. I mean, how else are they going to figure out, you know, what has to be built? So the product owner is spending all their time in meetings, and so, but that's okay. The team's kind of sharp because they'll figure this out, and they pick up the ball and they move it over, you know, and things are going well until the developer has a question. But because he's a good corporate citizen, he does what every good corporate citizen does, and he sends an email to the product owner, who is in a meeting and doesn't get it until the next day, you know, and then finally they forget the reply, but eventually the answer gets back. Also notice that the tester really wasn't included in the email, so now there's kind of two different ideas of what it is we're really building here. The new answer that the developer got and what the tester had built earlier. But that's okay, because the tester can't be bothered anyway. They're too busy building out the test scripts. Eventually, the developer is done, and look at that, he is done. Thank God. Thank God. And things are going along perfect, except for this defect, this bug that we find. Oh my God. That's okay. Whenever we find a defect, what we have to do? Well, we have to, of course, document it so that anyone can reproduce it, put it in our tracking system, and somebody's got to kind of look at it and prioritize it and say, do we fix it now, or do we defer it, or what do we do with it? But eventually it goes back to the developer, and eventually it gets addressed. Eventually everything is okay, and the story moves to review, so now we're really done, right? And eventually the product owner kind of comes back, and we're not even going to talk about what happens if the product owner doesn't like it. We're going to say that probably they do, right? And so we move the story to done. Except after the end of the sprint, we have this UX person that looks at it. And they can say, that thing that you thought was done, it really wasn't. And done comes kind of falling down. And we go through this whole process, and it's a sad thing. So, is that an Agile fail? It's Agile normal. Okay, well, we're going to start off by having these guys act that out for us. I think you guys need to really put it all into this. There are 3 strands of beads on the line here. This is for big money. Go ahead, take it away.
What if I have questions about, I'm not sure
Email
what to
me.
develop?
Email me.
Okay.
I'm very busy today. My schedule is full.
Oh.
If you need me, book me. My schedule is up to date.
Okay.
Here,
Let's see.
here, Ellen, this is.
Oh. Okay, well, let me start working on this story. These requirements are pretty ambiguous. I wonder what they really meant by this. There are 2 different options. Oh, I have to hold this in there. There are 2 different options here, and I'm just not sure what's the right one. Product owner, darn it, she's in a meeting again. I guess I've sent her an email. And I guess I'm gonna play some StarCraft while
I have no idea what developer asked. I thought that was very clear. What's missing here? Let me repeat it again.
Still waiting for that email. Maybe I'll play some Quake now.
My emails again and again. Okay,
Still waiting.
so
Wonder what the testers are doing now. They never really do anything.
Get to hang out with Facebook all day.
all right. I have some news for you. I work on that.
Oh, okay, well,
Works in here.
oh man, she's just saying the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. I'm just gonna make a command decision and do it this way and let's see. Oh, my code compiled. This story is done.
Wow. After 5 days, this is what I get. Seriously. They never CC on the emails, and they never CC me on the emails anymore.
Even in the emails?
I don't even know. Yeah, I haven't received one in a while. Anyways, let me see. Yeah, definitely not done.
Come on. Aw, man. Okay.
What do we got here?
All right, well. Okay, backspace. Shut the file.
Hmm.
Designing.
Well, she did write 2 unit tests. Okay, done.
Oh.
Have you booked me
Bottom of the meeting.
for a meeting?
You booked the meeting, she has.
Oh, have I booked a meeting? Yeah, that's the only way we get to talk to her. She never really shows up. Okay, let me send her an email and we'll book a meeting. I write very good emails.
Finally, after a week, I get some
Hi, guys.
Oh, look, it's our product owner.
Hi.
How's it
So
going?
We're ready to demo this.
I hear you have something for me.
Yeah, we have a beautiful feature for you.
Show me. What is this?
She did it. I found at least 5 bugs.
Even the price is wrong.
The customer won't notice.
You know what? I don't have time for this. I'm gonna leave it to my UX guy. Have some time. I'm on a meeting. Let me know if you see any problems with it, but you know what I'm looking for, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Anyway, thanks guys, great job. Keep it up.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh. Oh. This is the worst steaming pile of software I have ever seen in my life. I cannot believe that you are actually going to put this out in front of people. Do you seriously think this will hurt people? This is going to injure them. Their eyes will bleed. And I'm blind.
It's exactly what the product owner asked for.
You know what? I hate UX.
We get that a lot.
Anyway, the tester is supposed to find those bugs. If there are any bugs, it's not my fault.
Oh, please don't insult my design sensitivities.
Can I send an email? When is my feature going on production?
I think I'd better send her an email. Remember, I'm blind.
Is there a coffee in the way? Probably.
There you go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you found defects. Of course you found defects. That's nothing what I asked for. All right, so I just need this thing out to production right now. I don't care. At this point, we are so late. It took forever to get things done.
But my design sensitivities.
Yeah, those guys, they always find something to complain about. I don't know.
It's not beautiful enough.
Well, next time we're gonna make it pay them.
What would Steve Jobs say? Think about Steve Jobs.
We need jobs. Forget about Steve. So, you know what? Figure out the defect, the bug, and let's push it to production right now because we are behind and I need money. So, here.
Oh man, I'm already working on the next new epic. I don't have time to go back and deal with these stupid things the user experience guy found. Wow. Okay, well, let's see. I'll just sort of patch over this. Where's the story? Oh. Link out to our customers. How did this get into production already? Okay. Compile.
Wow, yet again? I have to deal with this every single week. They think I do nothing around here. Not done.
Okay, well this time I'll write a unit test. Okay. Okay, the test passed.
You know what? Okay, I'll give it an okay. I'm gonna send an email to product management to say, you know, we should review things now.
Okay, got an email again. Oh, right now it's good. So did you guys talk?
Ah,
What?
Did you fix it?
Oh, I wrote a unit test.
Ooh, that sounds fancy. What does it do?
steaming pile of software.
Oh, okay. So you happy now?
I'm never happy.
Listen,
I'm design.
can we push this to production? I really need this. We are behind.
Our users, their eyes will bleed.
It already got out to a customer and he's
Fine.
Just terrible. So, what is the worst that you can complain about?
Their eyes will bleed.
How about we make it for blind people?
My eyes are bleeding right now. Fine.
You know what? Let's talk with marketing and let's figure out how we sell this. Okay, done.
Done! Yay! Fine here. I'll tell you what. Now you guys get to vote, okay? Hang on. Maybe. So you guys get to vote. I'm gonna hold my hand over and just clap for whoever you think was the funniest, okay? So we'll start down here. Okay. Okay, I think our tester won that time. Yes, look at this, man. Look at this. All right. Okay. So, the truth is that we see that type of pattern way too often, right? Have any of you seen that before? You felt it? Yeah, almost everybody in the room is raising their hand. So, we're going to talk about what we can do about that. But first of all, I want to lay down a couple of ideas. So we've got these workflows that happen and all these different milestones that kind of happen along those. And if you spend a lot of time reading about lean, there's really sort of two types of milestones that it talks about. There's a marker milestone, which means that we've reached one stage and we're ready to kind of move to the next. And then there's a decision milestone, which is a milestone where we look at something and based on the decision, work either continues moving forward or work can potentially move backward. So sprint beginning is like a marker. It means that we're at the beginning. So a story's completed is another example of a marker. We have other things that are decisions. For example, I'll throw code review up here and just to give you a good idea. For example, if we do a code review, it's a milestone. We're ready to do that. And based on the results of that code review, we either say, yep, it's good, and so things continue to move forward, or we say, you know, this wasn't exactly right, and if it's not right, we have to decide, you know, do we let it pass and kind of say, Cheezy, bad boy, don't do this next time, or do we actually send it back and have somebody do some rework, right? So just so you know, that's sort of a value stream issue. When we're going forward, yeah, that's good. When we're going backwards, yeah, that's waste. That's bad. So, from my experience, the largest source of waste in software development is testing the software. And we'll talk about that. Whenever we test software after we've built that software, we have one of those big decision points, right? Is it working perfect? Is it working right? Then it goes forward. But very, very frequently we find out that it's not working right. And what do we do when it's not working right? It goes backward, right? Or deferred. No matter what, there's a lot of work associated with finding that defect and doing something with it, right? Whether it is being deferred and we still have to capture enough details so that somebody later can go in and try to reproduce it, and somebody has to review it, or if we send it back to get fixed, you know, the developer gets interrupted with what he's working on now, the new thing that he's working on, and he has to try to reproduce it, and if he can, he tries to fix it, only to have it go through a build process, and then the tester has to test it all over again, right? There's a lot of waste associated with that process. I call this the ping pong, development ping pong, where the developer pings the code to the tester, and the first time it takes, what, a minute and a half or so to find the first defect? What was that developer thinking? Don't they test their code? So you ping it back to the developer, and that wasn't in the spec. I don't know where that came from. And so they work on it and fix it up and throw it back. And the second time, it takes maybe 4.5 minutes to find the next defect, right? And how many of you have seen this game of ping pong go on and on? Yeah? That's a lot of waste, isn't it? A lot of waste. So what can we do about it? Well, I want to throw out another idea. And I want to talk a little bit about manual testing the software. Now, I'm not talking about the exploratory testing or some of the other higher order manual testing, but I'm talking about manually executing scripts, which there still are people doing that, right? Is anyone here still doing that? Okay. So the problem with this is that, well, let's look at it. See this little box? That's how much testing it takes in our first sprint. It's a 1, right? And the second sprint takes just a little bit more testing because we have to test the new things that we're doing, right? And we have to also go back and test the things from the first sprint to make sure those darn developers didn't break it. Shame on them. And the third sprint, it's just a little bit more, and so on, and so on, and so on. And eventually we reach a point where we have to make a decision around what are we not going to test, right? Because we can't do everything. Or we do these ridiculous things called hardening phases, which is kind of admitting that, we couldn't keep the quality high enough, so we've got to tack on some time at the end and ask our product owners to pay for us to fix things that we didn't get right the first time, right? And all of those are really, really bad ideas. So, this is how a lot of Agile teams do it. Their idea is that someone's going to write the code, and as soon as they're finished, we're going to hand it off, and the tester's going to test the code. So, this is how I used to do it years ago, but I found that there are other ways that we can work, and this is what I want to share with you today. This is what we're going to talk about. I have found that if we write the code and test it at exactly the same time, what happens is that we really streamline the software development process, and we dramatically improve the quality of what we're doing. So I'm going to talk about that. Let me go ahead and introduce the players here. So we've got our developer and our tester, and they're working to write the code and test. What exactly are these two doing? Well, first of all, TDD works. Pair programming works. These practices absolutely drive your code to a higher quality. There is no doubt there have been tons of studies done. It's not even out for debate really anymore, other than by people who decide that they want to argue. There's a few of those out there. So I like to see the developers test driving their code with a pair. That drives quality high. But while that's going on, what is the tester doing? Well, so in my world, the testers then are writing code to automate the acceptance tests. And we'll talk about what those are a little bit later. And in fact, in the workshop that Matt and I are doing later, we're going to actually do some, and we're going to write some code and show you how that works. You'll get to go all the way deep. It's going to be deep Agile. So, what else is going on? Well, so the tester starts to write this code, and they build out this automation suite for something that's not even there yet. And they almost always finish well before the developer gets his code in shape. And so once that happens, things turn around just a little bit, and that it now becomes the developer's challenge or role to make those tests pass. So the developer's taking the tests that the tester wrote and running them against the app and driving it as he's building it, and as he's doing TDD internally. And so, well, if the tester was finished with their acceptance tests much sooner, what are they doing? How many of you have heard of exploratory testing? Yeah? So what I've found is that we can actually start doing exploratory testing even before the code is finished. If the developer knows that that's what we want to do, and they start even building out their stories in these tiny little vertical slices and start really trying to focus on delivering something. I've seen cases where a developer will say to a tester, this one piece of the story, I'm done with it. These other two pieces, I haven't even started them yet. Don't take a look at them, but look at this little piece here. Go ahead and start looking at it. And that's what we want to have happen, is we want these two to start to talk to each other. In fact, the only way that this works is if they actually talk. It's a scary thing. Do testers and developers like to talk to each other? Sometimes, that's right. So the fact is that in this model, it doesn't work unless they work together. The tester can't build out the automation unless they talk to the developer and they agree to some things. The developer works with the tester to make sure that they're delivering the pieces and parts early that the tester wants to explore. And they kind of work together to create this shared vision around preventing defects. Pretty powerful, huh? How many of you are doing something like this now? We've got a few. Excellent, excellent. Well, you remember this picture. We're going to change this picture up a little bit and get you guys back to acting again, okay? How's that sound? So this time, we're going to start off at the same place. You may want to pay attention. Oh, but notice, we
Yes.
updated our story card wall a little bit. Sorry, we got rid of the testing column on our story card wall. We're going to have to remove a chair. Sorry.
You didn't have to sit in my lap, right?
If you're lucky, he will. So, here we go. Here we go. So, we started at the same place, and of course, the product owner goes to a meeting. Of course. Right? But that's okay, because the team's pretty sharp, and they're going to pull the story in, and the developer and tester start to work together. Wow. And if a question comes up, well, and the product owner still is in the meeting, so we've still got to send that. Right? If a tester finds a defect, what happens? We fix it. There's no question if we defer it or not, because deferring defects drives the overall quality of the system down. And low quality systems are harder to modify and harder to keep running, harder to drive new features into. So we keep the quality very, very high. Eventually we move the story over, and the product owner eventually shows up to review it. And when we're done, we say we're done, except for the UX person with the bleeding eyes. And we still gotta have this problem. Okay, well, sorry. Let's go ahead. You guys get the picture, so go ahead and act it out.
Alright.
Yeah, you're a problem, Dave.
Alright, guys. This doesn't work. Alright, so the idea is now that we have the bleeding eye feature, let's make it a pink eye.
A pink eye.
Alright, all clear? See
Well,
ya.
I presume that you've worked with the product owner and come up with the designs. Can you give me the mock-up so I can make the pink eye the right color of pink and stuff?
This is a mock-up. This is a mock-up. This is a work of art.
Awesome.
There's the PSD file.
Okay, great. All right, I think we can put this together. So, tester,
Okay.
do you know, is this the correct price?
No, I'm not sure actually.
Oh, okay, well, we better ask the product owner then.
Okay.
Let's send her an instant message. I think she'll answer faster than
Okay.
an email. Uh-oh, you better throw it.
Yeah. Good thing work pays for her cell phone.
So I asked them for a pink eye and they asked me for price. The price of the pink eye, the price of the product, like what are you guys asking? What are you asking?
I don't know, what are we asking, Tester? You understand this a lot better than I do.
We're asking for clarification. Because, you know, we can't get the perfect color of paint. We're just anything else.
Oh, the right color of pink. Don't you have the UX guy there?
Here, what?
Oh, I guess we could just ask him. Can you tell us if that's the right price for the pink?
Here. How's that? There you go.
Oh, okay, examples are good. Thank
I think
you.
he likes it. Okay.
Okay, well, so what are the test cases around?
Cool. Okay. I'll start building that it's. I'll start verifying that it's the correct shade of pink, and you make it happen.
Oh, okay. And so thanks for this test. Now let me just make that code work, the right shade of pink. Oh, this is some slick code. I'm still a hot dog. Yeah, okay, well, how about this? Does that look pretty good?
That looks pretty good, but now the plus is on. I think we have to do that.
Oh, man, okay, you're right. I missed writing a
Yeah.
test for that. Does this test look good? Do you think I've covered all the angles on this
Yeah,
test?
I think we're good now.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Let's call the product manager.
Hey, finally. Hi guys.
Hey.
Hey, it's our favorite product owner.
Yay! The only one.
Here's our story.
Okay.
Done.
So this is the pink you chose from all the shades of pink?
That's what
That's what you are.
UX is example he gave us. He used the mock test that he gave us also.
So what do you think, Elisa? Can we push this to production, guys? Come on now. You are even wasting time now with this.
I asked for Dusty Rose and you gave me fuchsia. Bugs.
Oh, really? Okay,
Hey,
well,
look at my eyes now.
will you come and pair with me so I can be sure?
I'm going on vacation now.
You haven't done it just a minute. Could you come and pair with me just so
Yeah, I
we
know
get
your
your next
minutes.
break?
There's hot dog. Okay.
Okay,
I
all
was
right.
hot dog.
Let's work on this together. All right. What do you think?
There you
How about that? I've changed the test case,
Okay.
and now I've made it this shade of pink.
go. Does it match?
What do you think?
Does it match?
Well, the tester says so.
Yeah, now it matches, but you know what? We have a regression of how
Oh.
bleeding eye failed.
Oh no!
Yeah.
We gotta put the blood back in.
Yeah, we have
More
Oh,
scarlet.
yeah. my code was a little too tightly coupled there.
Yeah.
So,
So refactor
let me
that stuff.
refactor that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good
All right. All right. How about this?
Okay, that looks better.
All right. Well, product goes on vacation. I don't know what we do now.
Chip it.
Alrighty.
Good production.
Another round of applause for these guys. I'm gonna make Ellen very jealous. I've got 3 purple strands of beads here. So let's just do some voting again. Start right here.
Oh yeah.
Purple.
Hey.
Alrighty.
Ellen's gonna try to steal these.
Yes, yes.
Hot dog.
Oh, let me go through these animations again. Okay. Come on. This is what happens when you get too clicker happy, you know. Go away, go away. Yeah. Okay, time for a story. True story. 2 years back, I showed up to work with a new team and was there to help them introduce some of the technical practices. And they were sort of doing something agilely already. And so my first week there, I was pairing with some developers. We were writing some code. And I noticed that their process was every time they found a defect, the tester would write it up on a red story card and go put that on the board. And so the developers would periodically kind of look up, and if they saw a red story hit the board, they knew right away to go look at it, try to address it quickly. Right? So that was kind of the process that they'd worked out before I got there. And the first week that I was there, I'm going to guess maybe around a dozen or so red cards went across the board. And I tried to ignore them for the most part. Week 2, on Monday, I went to talk to the tester. I said, hey, can you walk me through those cards that we did last year, those red cards? I want to know what they were. And probably about 90% of those cards, those defects, were UI defects. I'm like, wow, that's weird. Yes. As he salivates. So, the next morning, I'll give you, this is Tuesday of week 2 that I'm there, and they're already kind of freaked out by this guy who wears a funny hat and he calls himself Cheezy, and they're thinking there's some strange things going on. And it came my time to talk and stand up and say, guys, you guys are so lucky. I'm like, oh God, what's going on? I said, you know those UI defects we have? Well, we're not going to have any more of those. In fact, we're not allowed to have any more. It was dead silent. And someone said, that's not possible. I said, yeah, it is. Of course it is. Here's what we're going to do. Developers, when you think you're done with the story, before you move it to done, ask the tester to come over and sit with you for just a minute. Tester, I just want you to look at the UI, okay? Because the tester's already looking at just look at the UI, and if there's something wrong, how long does it take to fix most UI defects?
A minute.
Like a minute or two. They're very quick, right? Very fast. So if you find any UI issues, just fix them on the spot. Work together to do that. And so what we did was we actually didn't bring about any more work. The tester was already looking at the UI. We just kind of shifted where it was happening in the workflow. So instead of it happening after the developer's done and they check all the code in, and then finding it later and having to log a defect and go through this whole wasteful thing, we were again moving that forward and just changing where it happens. And believe it or not, after about a week or so, we really had none of those anymore. And the largest category of defects evaporated like this. Pretty amazing, huh? So, you guys ready? We're going to act it one more time. I don't even remember what's different about this one. We'll figure that out. We're starting off, product owner. Jeez. Meetings. That's okay. We're getting in here. They're working together. There's a question. We still have to send the email, so things are still going to be bad. We'll get to the product owner eventually. She's pretty bad. Find a defect. We fix it. That's good. If we need to, we bring the UX person in. By the way, let me interrupt here for a moment. The UX person here is representing anybody who looks at the software after we say it's done, has the ability to say it's not done. So if you've got a public site, it could be the folks who test for security, it could be the load testing group, auditing group, any group that gets to look at the software after the team says that they're done, and they can say, no, you're not done. That's what Dave is representing. We bring them in. If he finds any issues, we just fix it on the spot. Then move on. So, eventually the product owner gets to look at it, and eventually the story moves to done. And so this is the story now. 3 more strands of beads on the line. Let's give it all, guys. Let's go.
All right, guys, so you know my strategy by now, right? So we went from bleeding eye, pink eye, what's next?
No one. Bionic.
There you go, see? So you're a self-organized, you're motivated, you know the strategy. Can we do this? Okay.
We'd like some of that pizza though first.
Sure, ask Scrum Master to order one. Send me an email if you need anything from me. Here's the bionic eye. See ya.
Okay. Well,
It's a shame we didn't celebrate our
I know. It's hard to remember to celebrate the small successes for sure. Okay, so how are we gonna get started on this one and make sure? Last time we had, some rounds of bugs. I'm gonna to avoid that this time. What do we do?
Okay, we're gonna put some tests in place to make sure we don't regress, and maybe we'll be able to refactor some stuff with the bionic.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I could develop an automatically color censoring test and an automatic blood censoring test.
Is it supposed to be a blood sensor?
Well, there was a bleeding eye. I don't want to put bleeding and regression again. So let me get those in place. Maybe you could redo those for me and see if that's
Okay.
test cases.
You know what? I don't think we considered what are the bionic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't think it should be pink?
No. I think we need to get UX on this one.
Okay. Hey, UX guy.
Green.
You know he's colorblind.
My eye's green, so.
Okay,
Green
all right. So a green and bionic eye. Okay. Are there any other features of this bionic eye? Well, what would make it bionic?
Onyx. Look at onyx. You have to have onyx and bionic.
Yeah. Do you know what that is?
Is that just another color? Okay.
We'll figure it out.
But it must have some functionality too, right?
Uh-huh.
What do you think it does? That's the product owner. More questions
Yeah.
about it?
Full-fledged set of
Can you
features.
email her?
Yeah. You know, we'll ask her what are the capacities of this bionic eye.
Nice. You playing this afternoon?
So, I just asked for bionic eye. Is it that hard?
I know. Phone okay?
She says blue.
Oh,
She says blue.
okay.
Think of the users. Blue it is.
Okay, well, let me change the test.
Keep it
Okay.
up.
Let's look at
You
blue.
know what? We'll need to.
Spider-Man on it looks pretty bionic to me.
You know what? I'll add some stuff for the audio framework. We'll make sure it makes the right sound.
Oh, good idea. I had totally forgotten about that. I'm gonna stick in your ear.
So this one here.
Do you have time to do this exploratory testing? and see
Oh
if you're
yeah.
ready
You
to
know
go?
what? Yeah. Let's check this out.
Whoa, dude, did you see that?
What happened?
It sent username and password in clear text.
Wow.
Let's mention about
Boy,
this.
see, that's,
Yeah.
I didn't know it would bleed into that part of it. Wow, okay.
Are we using Bionics over SSL?
I'll have to change the port right now and encrypt that. Okay. All right, I think maybe some more exploring with it,
Yeah.
to be sure.
You know what?
The
I'm
tests are all passing.
pretty happy with it.
It is going to cost $6 million.
Yeah.
That's marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's marketing.
Ship it.
Ship it.
Okay,
Product owner, come back.
I think you better email her.
I better
Oh.
email her to come back. Whoops.
Even the email doesn't come right. Finally! I don't know how much this costs. Look at this. Hi, guys!
Hello. Do we have
Yes.
All right, pizza.
I smell anchovies.
Are you,
That's your blue bionic eye.
oh! Does it make noise?
Yeah, it has an audio function too.
Like,
Oh, sorry.
that's the wrong noise!
Oh, come on, this time we all work together.
So how much that is this costing me? And how am I gonna cover that?
That's marketing's
Got
problem.
a dollar sign pendant.
We have to figure things
That's
out,
why we
guys.
have you here.
It's getting expensive. Let's ship this, okay? Can you catch it? That first.
All right, ship it.
Yay!
Let's celebrate. Where's the beer? Let's Alrighty, we'll order you some pizza for shipping. Okay, well, the voting has to commence. Let me put my clicker here. And 3 beads on the line here again. And we'll start right here. All right. Here. Okay. I think the product owner gets the beads this time. All right. Alrighty. Very good. We gotta do something about this product owner, don't we? She's getting out of hand. Ah,
You
jeez.
have to be in my shoes.
I have to be. Okay, so what are product owners supposed to do on Agile teams anyway? What are they supposed to do? Yeah, what?
Answer questions
Okay,
in conversations with multiple developers.
okay,
And when they see it, either accept it or specifically what needs to be changed.
okay. What else? Can you think of anything else? Yes.
Represent the stakeholders.
Represent the stakeholders, okay, great. Anything else you can think of? Yeah. Prioritize, okay, great. Yes.
Be available and give clear requirements.
Be available and get, wow, those are great things. So I came up with a few here. Clearly help elaborate the stories. That's kind of what we were talking about here, explaining them, with the teams and such. I think a really important job of the product owner is to deliver the software. In other words, the product owner is the person who becomes responsible for what the team delivers. And if we're working on a deadline, for example, they're supposed to steer the team by bringing the stories in value order to make sure that they get the highest value software out of the team, right? I think another very, very important role for product owners is trying to decide what we shouldn't build. And the very best product owners that I've worked with were really, really good at that. And so I want to spend just a little bit of time kind of exploring those a little bit. The first one thing is sort of delivering the software though, because this is one that a lot of folks kind of don't realize. In the case where we get these non-Agile like projects that are brought to Agile teams, where we're given deadlines and we're given a full set of features, here's your fixed scope, here's your fixed time. Because
Get those sometimes? Yeah, how does that feel? Good? Yeah. So we know that really doesn't work that well. So what's the product owner supposed to do? Well, the product owner is supposed to decide what is the highest value. And they're supposed to work with the team, and then the team's supposed to deliver something, right? And then they decide what's the next highest value, and we just start to plot along like this, and eventually we hit that deadline. So what we actually delivered, and see in this case we didn't get up to our target, right? We weren't able to deliver everything. What we actually deliver on that deadline is the product owner's responsibility. It's not the team's. The team doesn't make the decisions. The product owner kind of steers the team by saying, here's the things I want you to work on. And it's their goal to make sure that they get the highest value piece of software on that deadline that they possibly can. What's the team's commitment back to the product owner?
Quality, high quality.
High quality, yes, what else? Maybe transparency, you think, right? You gotta be transparent. I'll throw out self-optimization as well, or Kaizen. In other words, we're going to start down this path where we're going to spend some of our time talking about how we can get better at what we do, right? So that's kind of our responsibility, and it really works out well. But the product owner becomes responsible for making sure that we deliver the right thing on the deadline. We also talked about, well, let's step back for a moment. What if we were somehow able to actually measure how much value we were delivering each sprint? If we were, we would have a chart that kind of looked like this, where we'd have this much value that we delivered in the first sprint or first iteration. And in the second sprint or iteration, we delivered just a little bit less because we worked on the highest value things in the first and then kind of the second highest value things in the second. And what's interesting is that if we would plot that along, and all things staying equal, which they rarely do, but I'm going to keep my model simple for right now, we would see that over time we would deliver less and less value. So by the time we get down here, you know, that nice spinny little icon that's up in the right-hand corner, yeah, that doesn't have a lot of it. It looks nice, and it's important to look nice. Look here, huh? Good product owners, though, realize that it actually costs the same amount of money to deliver the high value of the first sprint as it does the low value of the last sprint. Because our cost is our teams. It's the people. And so here, in the first sprint, that feels really good. We got a lot of value out of the burn that we had that sprint. But as we start to get down to these latter sprints, it doesn't feel as good. So the smartest and the best product owners that I've ever worked with are the ones that know this, and they're watching the money, and they're really cautious about it, and they realize that when you start to get about this point here, they've probably delivered about 80% of the value already, and it's time to shut it off and move to the next project. So that's what I mean by deciding what not to build. So here's an example where we've got a fun project, and we've got a few large feature sets that we're going to try to deliver. If we were somehow able to assign a value to those feature sets, which we can, I'll talk about those techniques here maybe later, if I have enough time. And then we break those features down into stories. And if we are able to assign value, it might look something like this. In fact, this is taken from a real project that I worked on, where it was similar to this, where there was one of the features that was so much more valuable than the other two. And if you mapped it out in a story map and it looks something like this, the product owner would definitely want to focus on this first. And the sharpest product owners might go for this and then say, we're done. If they can define a minimum viable product that contained only these really high value attributes, we would deliver it. And so that's deciding what to build and what not to build. And the last thing that we talked about for a product owner is elaborating stories, right? And so I have some news for you, that the product owners don't have everything that they need to get this right. So what I've learned is that if we ask a tester to get involved in this process in a really, really lightweight way, what happens is we make a much, much richer spec. Because the testers are the ones that constantly think about, well, what about this boundary condition? Or what about this, this can happen. And those are the things that often the rest of the team doesn't focus on or doesn't think about, right? And so what I found is that as we're elaborating, if the product owner can come to stand up some morning and say, hey, I've got 2 stories. Any testers want to hang around for 10 minutes or so after stand up and look at these? Just in a really lightweight way, let's take a look at these. And then the product owner listens to the tester and say, wow, those are good points. Let's make sure that's part of what we deliver to the team. It's much, much nicer. And I've also found that the developer has a very important role to play in this as well. The developer knows what's possible, first of all, right? There's something else that I've seen again and again, which is that the developers know something that nobody else knows. They know how the code is and what code is there. And so I've seen cases where the product owner brings something to say, this is what I want. And the developer will say, wow, we sort of do something like that already. But it's just in another area of the app. And it's maybe only 60% of what you're asking for. But if that's enough, I can give that to you in an hour or 2. But if you want the larger thing, it's going to take me 4 or 5 days. So in other words, they have insight into the code, and they can give us choices and options. And so what I've found is that including everybody in this elaboration process causes us to have much richer specs and the right sort of choices as we go along. Okay, this is the last time, guys. Last 3 beads are on the line. So let's see how this one goes. Last chance, UX guy. Okay? No pressure whatsoever. So, we're starting off at the same place, and this time, the product owner wrote the spec. When the story moves in from the team, the product owner hangs around. Let me comment on something that I tried at a client, and it worked really well, and this is only one data point, so I don't know if it's the right model yet or not, but I did try this. I had a case where we had a lot of business analysts, and so the product owner was always away, and the business analyst kind of played the proxy role, right? Yeah. And every time we needed a decision to make, basically the business analyst was the one who sent the emails. And so it was like a telephone game, right? Mm-hmm. And so I decided, what would happen if we tried to shift that? So I talked to the product owner about, what are you doing in those meetings? Well, I'm listening to what people say, collecting their ideas, and then I'm going back. Could somebody else do that for you? And so we changed it so that the business analyst reported to the product owner. And the product owner sent the business analyst out to the meeting so that they could be with the team to answer the questions and decisions. And then the business analyst would go to the meetings and bring the information back and work with the product owner to help drive out the future. And that worked well. Like I said, one data point. I'm going to try it again sometime. We'll see. But the product owner in this case stays there. And as development starts, we do this thing called the 3 amigos. Now, I think it was mentioned yesterday, right? So 3 amigos is where the product owner and the developer and the tester, they just read the spec. Make sure they're on the same page. Talk about it. In my world, I even let the requirements change at this point. I don't care if we discover something new here, because it's much better if we discover something here to build the right thing than to say, no, we're in a sprint. We can't change anything. So we're going to build the wrong thing and come back and fix it later. So we read the spec, and then we get busy. If we have a question, we just ask and it gets answered. If we find a defect, we just fix it. Eventually, we bring in the other folks that need to look at it. If they find any issue, we fix it. Once everybody feels good about the product, the developer and tester both say, we've built this, we've tested it, we've interrogated it all we can, we think that the quality is high, we don't know of any defects, then we move the story out. When the product owner goes to look at it, it's a non-event. They've already seen it as we were constructing it. So those stories, when they move to done, they usually are done. Last time, guys, let's hit it. The last 3 strands of beads are on the line. I need to see it. Let's move it.
All right. I have a question. Can we start this iteration with a retrospective? I was a little frustrated with how things went in our last couple of iterations. I wonder if there's something we can do about it.
All right. I was told that I have time now to stay with me.
Well, one of the problems is that you weren't with us before, and I thought maybe we could hire Ellen to be our business analyst, and she could go to those meetings and represent you and get all the information.
Bionic toys probably will get approved by the feds instead of needing to rework that. Yeah.
Good point there. So what do you want me to do? You know what? I'm going to send some emails to someone, to our lawyer. Lawyer, can you please go figure out some rules on how to get a bionic eye? So, no, not just rules, but make it happen. These guys are really
So we know everything else about the
send me an email when you're done.
toy. So we can make everything else around that and figure out the eye and integrate it later.
Okay, well, let's start right.
Yeah.
We got some tests for me to start with.
Yeah. We'll do a test to make sure that it's durable, and when kids play with the toys, it doesn't go to waste.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be that durable because it's a plush toy. So let's make it. Don't spend too much time on that.
Okay. Well, you're okay with that?
Yeah. You know what? Let's see what UX thinks about the length of the arms.
You're okay. What do you think?
The arms are fine, but you know, when I asked for a password reset, it's leaking personal information. What do you think this is, healthcare.gov? Bug.
Okay.
Says the comedian.
It's called shot put.
Okay, golly, I'm having trouble. I'm really having trouble with that requirement. I it's a security link, but the noise problem that you're having, it's really expensive the way the code's written out to make the noise. So, do we make the noise? Because I've already got a class for that in the code.
Alright, you know what? We can save this for another feature for Valentine's Day. Maybe on some Let's do it for Christmas with your, what is it? Okay.
Now we're bells.
All right, I think it's better to
Yeah.
it.
All right.
Touch this up.
What do you think?
Arms, personal information, SSL.
Yeah.
Yes, I like it.
How's the tail?
Yep. 5 millimeter.
Okay. Only one little fix. Okay, yeah, that was we did not get every part. How about this product under? Shorten this down by a millimeter.
So tail shorten. I'm still pending on the lawyer. Those damn lawyers. But I think we're good. Let's all read it together. Lawyer. Did we pass? Are we all set?
Yeah, we worked it out.
Nice. All right, guys. Merry Christmas.
Good
All
work.
right.
Okay, last 3 beats, folks. So let's start here. Okay, you guys are done.
We need an applause
If you guys want to go
for
sit down, you can.
For our lawyer.
But then,
You're welcome to keep them. That way, I don't have to take it back to security again. I did last time.
What do you have in your luggage? You're doing what? Pizza Hut? Okay. Few more topics just to finish off. What, you don't want the bling? I want the bling. So we kind of talked about what happens to the story in the sprint. That's what those animations were about.
But I just wanted to kind of drive into real quickly, again, how I like to do the elaboration ahead of time, because I found this works really, really well, is we start with the product owner actually writing the specification and writing gherkin, or given when then. And you guys got a little bit of exposure to that yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later today, and we're going to actually write some of the automation behind it for you too. And you guys are going to do some other fun, crazy things, because I'm crazy, trust me. And so we like for the product owner to learn how to do this. And it actually, I've had folks say, well, product owners can't do that. Well, actually, they can. If it's done right, it's done well, and you can show them how, and we can learn how to grow into this, they can do it pretty well. What we like to do, though, is, again, I really like to start to elaborate stories just in time. So in other words, if I'm going to need some stories next week, I'll work on them this week. Okay? And what I like to see happen is I really like to see the product owner bring 1 or 2 stories or so to us, stand up in the morning and just say, hey, is there a tester here that would like to just hang around for 15 minutes or so? We don't schedule a meeting, we don't get a meeting room, we want to do this really lightweight, really fast. And just take a look at these with me. And again, we read through them, and the tester says, wow, did you think about this, or what about that? And we build out this rich spec. Later, one more pass where we add the developer. Now, it might seem a little wasteful to do this in 2 steps, but what I found is that, at least while we're learning how to do this initially, introducing both the developer and tester at the same time caused a little bit of tension. And so, what I learned is that by having the tester get in there and build out those boundary conditions, then the developer has a much better vision of what the scope of the story is before they really even have a chance to look at it. We clearly want to gather their insight and their knowledge and their knowledge of the code base and everything else. This is what I found works the best. And then ultimately we're going to go ahead and move that story into our work in progress or into our sprint. And that's how I like to do progressive elaboration. Okay. Management, yeah, you didn't get off the hook here either. So part of delivering quality is also knowing how to define products, how to work to try to make sure that we maximize the return. I don't know if you heard the product owner talking about that a little bit. She did a good job, huh? So, unfortunately, most companies have absolutely no idea how to do this. They have no idea. So, let's back up real quickly. And we've got this fictitious company where we've got 4 projects that we need to try to get done this year. So what do? Well, we kind of prioritize them. This is the highest priority, this is the second highest, and so on. And we just kind of queue them up. So we're going to have the team do the first project. And once they're done, they'll move on to the second, and so on, right? So that's how we do this. The problem is that there's nothing more wasteful than this. Especially if we're writing those projects all the way down to those low-value stories, right?
Yeah.
We saw earlier how, after a certain point, we keep spending a lot of money and keep getting lower and less value. So what I've learned is that, well, let's take this a little bit forward. Remember this slide where we talked about this, right? What happens if we've got multiple projects like this? Which we do. It makes absolutely no sense to try to write this first project and deliver the whole thing and to chase this when I've got this segment over here. So if I'm a manager and I've got a budget to spend, and some of that budget goes to keeping the lights on, and some of that goes to developing new things, right? And that usually is pretty much set ahead of time. You know, I've got, what, $50 million, whatever it is. This is my budget. This is how much I can spend. Part of what we have to do is figure out how do I get the most out of this spend. And it clearly is not by chasing this all the way down. Because I'm going to spend a lot of money getting this much value whenever this much is sitting here. So I've learned this from some really smart guys, that what we need to do is we need to take a completely different view around how we prioritize projects and how we focus on what we work on. So, what does done mean? What does done mean? Anyone?
Production worthy.
What's that?
Production worthy.
Production worthy, okay. What else? Does anyone have a different definition?
Never gets back.
Never goes back? Okay. What else?
It passes what you expected it to do, then you think it's what the customer needs.
Okay. Anyone have another definition or something else to add? Yes. In the customer's hands? Okay, what else?
Customer accepted. Project is retired.
The project is retired. A happy customer. Actually, it's interesting that some of you said that it's in the customer's hands or it's deployed. You know, continuous deployment is a hot topic these days. And we're seeing more and more companies that are deploying to production very frequently, in some cases every day or multiple times a day. That's good. That's amazing. I'd like to see that. So, well, I have a tweet here that I actually grabbed from Matt a while ago that I thought was great. He's actually quoting somebody else. Yeah. Done is not hard to find. It means it is done and never comes back. Isn't that what you said? Yes. Yes, I was there too. So, if that's what done means, why do we have this thing called done still going on? What is do you guys know what done is? Almost done. Or George Dinwiddie says if we have 4 of them, we have Beethoven, right? Done. So what I've found is that if we have dev done, test done, you know, or these different, it sort of pits the team against each other, and they don't share this common goal, right? So the developer's job is, let me get it to my done, and then I can wash my hands of it and walk away. Because that's all I'm held accountable for, right? So the faster I can get that done, the better I look. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody here doing done? Stop it if you are.
We can't work for the Army, we can't get it to the customer again without, they're going through their process.
A 3-month process?
3 months, not my process.
That's right.
So, you know, I have to have some milestone that my team can hit that says we're complete with it and to the absolute best of our abilities, and then we hand it over, and then the Army does what they do to the customer. Otherwise, nothing ever gets done. It's a big rock.
Right. Well.
But they might, over time, they will finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a different story. We had the Army get it in a week. So maybe we ought to talk. Because I've seen it done.
I've seen it done for work, basically, like they're not.
No, I've seen regular delivery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for the military.
Well, you two should talk then. You definitely need to talk.
I know it's.
So anyway, I'd like to thank you guys. The whole idea that I wanted to get across in this talk is that whenever we're talking about quality, it's not the tester's responsibility. It's not the developer's responsibility. It's everybody on the team. And what I've seen happen again and again is if we get these folks to truly collaborate and work close together, that what happens is I've worked with many teams in which we've had 0 defect. Release after release after release. We drive quality high and we streamline development. Thanks a lot. If anyone has any questions, I'm 10 minutes early, sorry. Yes?
So, we're talking about doneness.
Doneness. He said medium rare.
On the topic of doneness, as you scale up a little bit, you're delivering into a shared suite of things. There's an integration complexity to it, and if you're doing something that's incrementally adding to features before you make it customer facing, there's still some integration and market-driven decisions to be made before things are in customer service. So what are your thoughts around dealing with those things that are kind of disruptive to the cadence but necessary for the business?
So let me clarify, by integration, are you talking integration with external companies or integration with other organization groups within the same company?
Other groups within the same company.
Yeah, so, well, that's a great question. I'm dealing with that now, at the client where I'm at, where when I got there, they did integration, 2 sprints. A story would be finished, and then 2 sprints later, they would have it go through some integration because it took them that long to get the scripts and everything else in place. And they have some challenges with that. Most of the back end is mainframe, and there's all sorts of challenges with this. We are changing that now so that before the story is done, we are starting integration. The way we're building out our automated test suites is that the data is driven from an external source. So we've got our test suites where we're running with mocks, which is what we have running continuously. So we've baked out a lot of the calls initially because we want those to run very fast and all the time around the clock. But we also have subsequent sets of data that we load in, and that we get this from a test data management group that's setting up the data for us for larger runs. So integration testing is something that we're doing fairly regularly now. So we're actually doing it inside of the same sprint for the first time ever, at least at this company. So that's always a big issue. Again, that's like the UX thing, okay? In that if we have things that happen after the team that's done, we're going to introduce waste if there's anything that's found there. So you want to try to pull that in as much as you can. Load testing is another issue. I mean, where I'm working now, they have millions and millions of hits every day on their website. So they've got to scale. And again, it was a separate group that was doing all of the load testing, all the performance testing, and they were testing quite some time later because they weren't updating their scripts until the story was done and some sprint later. So I've integrated them, and they're actually running the load test once a sprint now, and I'm working with them to try to get it even more frequently. So it's all about trying to pull those things as close as you can to the actual delivery of the software as we're constructing it. So marketing things, again, we should know what our marketing approach is. Hopefully, we can know that before we're starting to build the software. But
Just point of clarity, do you consider it then not done until all those other things are done?
so definition of done is something that the team decides, right? And it's an evolving thing. So my definition doesn't matter right now for them. So it's their definition. And so, and hopefully it's something that as a team gets better and more mature, that the definition of done gets more stringent. So we have added integration testing now to our definition of done, where before, like I said, it was happening a couple of sprints later. Load testing is not part of it yet, so, but that's partly because I can only get load testing running once a sprint. I want to get it to run every day here, and I'm working toward that. So yes and no. Yes.
The sort of process you described where people are working together much more closely on each individual parts sounds great to me and makes a lot of sense. But do you feel that like some of the sort of the artifacts you use, I work in a Scrum environment, for example, with the swim lanes and all this kind of thing, are kind of a hindrance, you know, cognitively to that kind of mindset, because they kind of, in a way, you know, they establish these silos and groups here that yes. They create these kind of silos,
right?
You know, like kind of cognitively, you have this feeling that you know it's here and then it goes to here, and there are people responsible for different stages. I mean, do you think there's a case to be made that the cognitive models we use to kind of keep track of what we're doing should be maybe different as well?
Or we should inspect and adapt. So when I don't know if you noticed, I actually dropped the whole test column in the second run, and I do that fairly regularly, only because I try to build this mental model that testing is part of development. It's not really constructed until it's tested. So this is one fluid process where we have different disciplines coming together to work in one thing. So I think that what we try to do is we continue to see how we push, and our model that we have, our story, you know, the swim lanes and stuff has to continue to evolve as the team evolves and becomes more mature and learns how to work closer together. So a lot of folks are using Kanban with weight cues, and what I discovered is that even those weight cues are a form of waste. I've got things setting there. I don't really have a clean flow. I have things setting in those cues, right? And so I started if I was trying to achieve flow, what do I need to do? How can I find ways to get rid of those weight cues and collapse things? And then I saw handoffs that were going backward. How can I collapse that further? And it was just all about continuing to push to try to get something that was more streamlined and something that actually drove a lot more collaboration in the team as well. So the model of how our story card walls, how we set those up, is a starting point. But as we grow as a team, we need to evolve those as well.
Yeah, because I find that even though, I mean, people sort of call them tracking tools,
yes,
when people look at them, it kind of establishes a mindset. You know, people go, oh, well, why are we doing that? Because, you know, the board says this, you know, so they tend to be much more than tracking tools. They become like your mental model of how things are working.
Yep, absolutely. It's sure to, yeah, back here?
Yeah, I want to take a little different
question about your, I'll comment on something that you said. When you have the testers and everybody working together, what I found is some bugs, problems, what you might call them, have a different severity and a different, and therefore, and sometimes a different priority. And I've noticed that developers get very upset when they're interrupted on something that it might call low priority. Somebody has to add a judgment call, because two guys can be working together very closely and they're trying to figure something out. Tester comes in, I just found this UI problem. There's a limitation, because I actually had to create in my group, bring the Bronx in once a day, this period of time. These guys need to spend a little time together, an hour or two, whatever it is, and we schedule it when you bring something in, still as a team. How do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about that, and Lisa wants to answer that, explain that as well.
Well, I just want to, I don't like to interrupt developers either if they're heads down in something, if it's not that important. But on the other hand, the UI bug, as we discussed, is so quick to fix. It's like, just get out of the way, don't incur the overhead of having to keep a record of it. I want free access to the developers, and they want free access to me when they have questions. So I personally would not want to like this. And you know, also saying that is implying that developers work is more important than the testers. I like for the testers to feel equally valued.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I've actually had some real problems where I had a situation where there was a guy who essentially broke things by bringing things in that were irrelevant. Because
That's
they
a
didn't.
training problem, though. That's a
So,
training problem.
look, learning how to work together is not easy. Let me say that I've gone to organizations where there are these big walls between development and test, where there's a lot of lack of trust and finger pointing. And in order to get to a point where you start to work well together, each side has to earn the trust and the respect of the other. And the only way we do that is by working together. So I can say you should trust me or you should respect me, and the vice versa, but that doesn't happen until we get the same shared vision and we start working toward that together. So that's been my experience. Having something more formal where we say, oh, well, we can only interact during this time or whatever, that seems like it's going to not lead to the collaborative type work that I want to see happen in the teams at least. So for me, it's about having this huge, intense focus on quality, and keeping the quality high, and having everybody share that same idea, that same vision, and working hard together and bringing their own skills and talent to the table to help achieve that. So, and yes, sometimes we have personalities that are kind of disruptive. Hopefully the team has enough strength to address that, and I would let the team try to address it myself. And if not, then maybe somebody else needs to come in and help facilitate some solutions for that problem. I have the 1 minute sign up. 1 minute, quick question.
Yeah, so maybe not so much a question, but a comment that maybe we can deal with later.
Yeah.
But you know, the kind of the skits and everything else, you had the case where the developer and the tester kind of work things through, and there's no bug. Okay, that's good. Maybe you have unit tests. Our developer did that, but there comes a point where that stuff still has to go into a set of regression tests.
Yes.
And there has to be some kind of a decision is, should that be a unit test or a regression test?
Absolutely.
And this is kind of something maybe Lisa can answer too.
Well, we're going to actually go into that in the next workshop that we're going to go through, so that's a topic that we're definitely going to dive into. So if you hold tight, let me just say one last thing, and I know our time's just about over. I maybe have 10 seconds left or so. When I get this model working well and the team's really gotten to a point where they've driven quality high, sometimes we do find defects. But what I started doing was, when that happens, I stop the whole team immediately. If we have a defect, let's quickly do a retrospective. What was it about our process and the way we're working together that allowed this to escape? And what do we need to do to change our process so that this type of defect doesn't happen again? And that really continues to focus everybody on what our goal is. And so that's it. Thanks a lot, folks. I think we got a 30-minute break now. So, 30 minutes. We'll see you guys later.